as time went on after the happenings of that day, it came to light that the house belonged to a high-ranking military personnel. Does this put a kind of coloration on all these happenings, knowing who the owner is?
I'll answer that question. But before I answer that question, I'll just say this. The problem, as I see it, is that our government does not take responsibility. If it does, then there won't be the usual proclivity anytime something like this happens for a call for commission of inquiry. And I'll give you an example. Before the Apple shootings, or Apple 7, that has now become Apple 8 because one died later in the hospital, there was Apple 6 in 2007.
Because that was Apple, isn't it?
Yes, Apple 6. When traders were killed by the policemen who labeled them armed robbers. And there was one ACP, Danjuma Ibrahim, Otman, who later fled, that they didn't see. And the initial reaction of the police was first to label them armed robbers. When they realized that the hue and cry in the polity would not win, they then set up a board. Now, we need to remind ourselves this. They did that, and later the presidency that had responsibility for FCT under the Tribunal of Inquiries Act, because they have residual power control over Abuja, then decided that no, that's not the way to go. And they set up a commission of inquiry headed by one lady justice, which then paved the way for the commencement of trial that have been truncated now. So we've not seen an end of it. So the point I'm making is that when an incident like this happens, before the National Human Rights Commission, whose forte really is not to investigate that kind of thing, the SSS and the military that had immediate responsibility for deployment of troops ought to step in, investigate, and then bring a report to the president. This is what has happened. And then at that stage, without anybody calling for a commission of inquiry, take responsibility and say, this was wrong, this happened, this is operational failure, and so on and so forth. Look, United States claims it's fighting terrorists in Afghanistan and Pakistan. They collateral damage, killing people every day with drones. Sometimes they say, yes, we're sorry because this happened. Sometimes they don't. But the point is that this is Nigeria. And when something like this happens, we're all on the same page on fighting terrorism and insurgency and all that. They've wreaked enough havoc. Nigerians are tired. They've been killing people every day. And so we want our security to work effectively. We don't want to hamper them. But when mistakes are made, it behoves on the security agencies first, before we start talking about the intervention of the National Human Rights Commission and so on and so forth, to own up and say, we're sorry, this is what happened. We have not seen that happen here. As to, whether the NHRC can come in, I would say yes, it's part of his mandate, but again, until Chidi, I call him fondly Chidi, Professor Chidi Odinkalu, came to the National Human Rights Commission, I will not give the National Human Rights Commission any credit. Why? How was it conceived? Abacha established the National Human Rights Commission. People have forgotten this after killing Sawura, and there was an international outcry. Then to really insult us, he then set up the National Human Rights Commission to pretend that it was committed to. That's the history of the National Human Rights Commission that you're talking about. Now, it's possible that in the present circumstances, the prevailing circumstances, by the sheer force of character and then because of personality, you may then have a transformation in the National Human Rights Commission. But the point is that the agencies that authorized that operation ought to come out and say, this is our report. We've not had that. What we've had is the Chief of Army Staff just issuing a statement. That's not a report. I would rather have a situation whereby the Chief of Army Staff say, yes, we've conducted an investigation. The SSS has conducted one. Or there's an interagency, collaboration. There's, the three arms have a report ready for the National Security Advisor and the President. And that is what the President has directed. Now, for the President, because we're dealing with a presidential system of government, all these agencies are there to help the President achieve. Now, for the President to then leave this to continue and then speculation and all that, okay, it will go away and all that, that is not how you govern a society, really. And so, my point is that we have not seen the kind of response that we ought to see. There's
that response should come from which source?
First, the security agencies, saying that we've investigated. This is what they've been doing rather is they've been reacting to media reports by issuing statements. That's not a report of an investigation. They need to do that, to take responsibility before the National Assembly, because now what we've had, and this is very interesting, when the apostles happened, those who were frontline organizations and groups that responded were largely from the East. Now, when this one happened again, there was an initial attempt to ethnicize it. Who are the first person responding? Atiku and all that. So now, they obviously, partisans, politicians want to score a point with this. But what behoves of those who are working professionally, the security agencies and the presidency, is to arrest that situation and say, we have investigated. These are reports and all that. And you can take it off from there. Because now that you're talking about the NHRC, tomorrow NHRC wants to do something and call on the military. The military said that there is no authorization for them to appear before any panel. So what do you do?
Not a lot, but we have to
my
begin to
question hasn't been answered yet.
Yes.
Very good. So let me throw it to Oscar about the ownership of the building, one, and then uncompleted buildings that dot the, that are all over the place, which can be used as havens for, shall I say, elements that are not exactly, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I was worried when you raised that question. I was worried because you're going to be leading us in a direction where we'll say, I think maybe the owner wanted his place flushed out, and he gave an order, and then the place was flushed out. But I'd rather not even go along there. I'll try as much as possible. Let us play safe because of the human rights people who, again, will start calling somebody. What is happening? Nigeria is at war. We've been fighting. We've been killing. It's so interesting because it's like you don't even know what's going on anymore. I was on radio with Sonny Rabo some months back, and they asked me, what record would you want us to play for you? I said, let's play Bob Marley. And what was Bob Marley saying? There's a natural mystic blowing in the air. Many more will have to suffer. Many more will have to die. Don't ask me why. And is that not what's happening today? Exactly what is. The man was a prophet. Many more will have to suffer. Many more will have to die. When I listen to lawyers, particularly great lawyers like GT here, and talking about the rights of the people, who has rights in Nigeria? We only have privileges. And you know what hurts? And this soul will pass away. Why? Because it's not the fault of those people. It is when will we come together and say, enough is enough. We've not gotten to that stage yet. For as long as it remains that way, many more will have to suffer. Many more will have to die.
Okay, as we begin to wind down now, let me ask you, Ikechukwu Ikeji, do you think our government is capable of taking responsibility for things like this? Because the word that's being used by GT here as being responsibility. Do you think our government is able to take responsibility for this and then for us to learn from it and to ensure that we
I have
don't
an
have
outright
a
answer to
repeat.
that. Our government is not yet ready to take responsibility for that. They have not taken responsibility for ordinary developmental issues. They've not taken responsibility for integrity issues, for character issues in the system, for institutional issues. How much more some of these sophisticated failures on their part, they cannot take responsibility. Excuse me. We remember the Baga killings. We remember the Zachary Biam killings. We remember Odi killings. These are perpetrated by the same government. For example, in Zachary Biam killing, there was an order for compensation. My question would be, if the government is ready to take responsibility, have they settled, have they paid that compensation? OD, likewise OD. Have they paid the compensation there? No. NHRAC was also existing when those human rights abuses occurred in the north under the pretext of fighting Boko Haram. As we speak, international reports, very, very verifiable reports, have shown that there are human rights abuses. And that is where, like Mr. Ajiti has said earlier on, failure of intelligence. You don't use brute, it's not, military strength is not just about brute force. It also involves intelligence. And so when you are moving into to quell certain problems, you also have to follow up with adequate intelligence. And that is where the responsibility comes in. I don't think that our Nigerian government, as presently constituted, is ready to take the responsibility until we see something else to the contrary.